Hello, we all know that lithium is a critical mineral for modern battery manufacturing, and it is almost omnipresent in many of our everyday devices, such as smartphones and laptops, and of course also in the electric vehicles and power stations that require energy storage. It is projected a steady increase in demand for lithium in the coming decades. Hence, securing a reliable lithium supply is strategically imperative at a global scale. Now, there are different forms of lithium extraction, but in today's podcast, we will focus in one in particular, lithium from geothermal brines, and you will learn why this method holds a huge potential. For discussing this very interesting topic, we have a subject matter expert. I'm referring to Noah Morris. Noah is a geologist with a master's degree and a PhD with specialization in geochemistry from the University of Arkansas. Noah currently works as a researcher for his alma mater, the University of Arkansas, and during his career, Noah has also worked in the field in various projects for oil and gas companies in the continental US. Lastly, the company I manage, Sustainable Earth, has the honor to have Noah as a member of our consulting team, and we believe that Noah is an exceptional asset for our company. And during this interview, you will learn why. Noah, without further introduction, welcome. Welcome to this podcast episode.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, great to have you here.
Yeah.
Noah, okay, so well, let's start with our first question. I'm sure not many people are very familiar with lithium brines and the relationship that it has with geothermal resources, and basically the ability to extract lithium from these kind of resources. So, could you please provide a high-level overview of what geothermal lithium brines are?
Sure. So the lithium brines are just really, I can think of them just being subsurface aquifers where there's just elevated concentrations of dissolved lithium within the water. So these are typically you'll find these in areas where you do have some elevated geothermal gradients, so that you can have additional leaching of lithium from a source and going into these waters. And over time, those will just concentrate within these reservoirs that can be used for extraction. These can be a process. These are sort of we kind of think of these as just really aquifers, and they can be processed through pumping this water out to the surface. You can evaporate this water and then leave behind the lithium. And these are starting to become really quickly a new and sort of almost a new source of lithium rather than the traditional methods of extracting lithium through mining, typical hard rock mining. And so there are a lot of new areas that are opening up for this, and it's a new industry that people are taking a close look at.
Mm-hmm. So you gave us a quick overview of what geothermal lithium brines are, and you also referred a little bit about the process. Could you tell us a little bit more about the process for extracting lithium from geothermal brines, and what advantages this process has when compared with other traditional methods like mining or evaporites? What makes them maybe more advantageous?
Yeah, so the traditional methods, just using the hard rock mining, your typical mining of going out and making
open
a big
pit.
open pit.
And what about the evaporites? It's also.
There's some of the hard rock mining. There's some clays. There's some lithium-rich clays as well, where you can they can use this and extract and all of this lithium concentrations out of your rocks. And these tend to have like a large footprint, a large surface area at the surface. But then, that does require a lot of manpower, a lot of equipment, lots of fuel. But then with the brines, you could take, just pump water out to the surface and pump these out into these large, you got a couple different ways of doing it. You pump it out through large ponds, which is very low energy intense processes where you can just pump it out into the ponds, let the water evaporate, and then you leave behind lithium. And that is a very sort of passive energy way of doing it. It's not very expensive in terms of using energy, but it does take up a lot of area on the surface. And then alternatively, there is a way to pump out this water and then just go to a direct processing plant.
And that's what we're talking about, right? The geothermal
Yeah.
lithium.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you can go directly into geothermal, you can go into just process this and pull out that lithium as it's moving through, a processing plant. And then with something like that, really all you're using is just, you got some wells, and then you got a processing plant. It's much less, you don't need a big open mining pit or large ponds on the surface. It's a little bit more controlled and a little bit easier to deal with in that manner. They all sort of have their own challenges associated with each other. Having large areas or well bores, you have to maintain, because some of these brines are pretty salty, so you can have some corrosion going on. But this is sort of a new industries and new engineering challenges that people are really taking a close look at and coming up with some new solutions.
Excellent, excellent. Now, are these lithium from brines only found in very specific locations worldwide, or it is common and abundant?
So lithium brines really are for economic brines are really kind of found in just a few select areas. Generally speaking, these need to be found within some arid climates, some closed basins. Just think of like some salt flats in desert areas.
Like in Chile and Argentina
Chile.
and Bolivia.
Yep, absolutely. And you also need an aquifer to host this lithium. You need a source of the lithium itself. And you need to have some sort of a heat source, have some a higher geothermal gradient. And then on top of all that, you just need time for all of this to accumulate, through all of those geologic processes. So to check off all of these boxes, really there's not a whole lot of areas where these are present, and it really narrows things down. But there are a lot more of areas where you can actually mine the stuff through hard rock methods. Through spodumene or lepidolite minerals, clays. There's a lot more of those than there are brines. At least at the moment, until we work out all the economics for it. But there's a couple of big areas, like in the like you mentioned, like in Chile, out there in the Atacama Desert. That's a large area that's got a lot of brines. Out in the Basin and Province region, or Basin and Range province of the United States, California, Nevada. It's a similar arid climates. You got some closed basins there. You got higher geothermal gradients. It kind of checks off all the boxes there. And those two areas are kind of the two dominant areas at the moment where there's been a lot of development on these geothermal brines.
But now, those examples are rather shallow, right? But often when we talk about geothermal, we associate to maybe the requirement for drilling in looking for aquifers. So, do you think that that will be more common, like finding aquifers in a region where there is also good geothermal gradient? But we're talking now about the requirement for drilling, right? Is that? Do you think that that's more common, that finding aquifers rich in lithium brines?
Well, I mean, time will kind of tell to see really how much development goes on with that. It's kind of the easiest is kind of going after the shallow stuff first and then working your way down. And there's a lot of brines down at depth, and so folks will be really taking a close look at that, especially like in oil and gas operations. I'm sure there'll be a lot of folks who'll be taking a closer look at those brines to see what's really inside of that, and if there's any byproducts that can be used. And even for geothermal processes, everywhere that's got geothermal plants going on, they'll be taking a close look at.
Okay, so there could be hybrid projects where you can harness the heat from geothermal, and in addition, you can also extract lithium. So now that we are discussing these both energy resources together, so what is could you explain us about what is the correlation between lithium-rich brines and geothermal or hydrothermal resources? Maybe you can talk about co-production and or synergies, and if there are examples, could you mention some?
Sure. So with geothermal, there's a lot of similarities, between the geothermal resources and with the lithium brines, because you can have with geothermal people. The easiest place to produce geothermal as an energy source is looking for areas that got high geothermal gradients. If you have a lot of igneous activity that is producing a heat source, and that volcanic or something like volcanic activity, for instance, if you have an active tectonic region such as out in the Andes Mountains, there's a lot of volcanic activity there, which contributes to heat that plays a role with these lithium brines. And so there's some overlap with that. And with volcanic activity, you produce some volcanic ash, where you can actually have a lot of lithium that is concentrated within ash. And then over time, you just got to give it enough time for all that ash to sort of concentrate, weather down, and make its way into the brines. And then you got yourself, not only a geothermal source, but you got an energy source, but you got a lithium brine source as well, just right there in the same spot. And so and on top of all of that, you can have faults that can play a role in both of these sources of energy, where you got faults providing conduits for geothermal fluids.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you got a lot of igneous activity, you might have a lot of faulting in the area. So there's a lot of geologic dynamics that are at play for both, and having these two overlap in a lot of areas, such as in South America, can really lead to a lot of synergetic production going on.
Uh-huh. So I can understand the association, and thank you for responding my question. But can we mention specific examples? Is there any specific example that comes to your mind? I know one, for example. I think the Salton Lake could be one, right? I think also there is a project in Germany by Vulcan Energy, I think is the name of the company. But anyways, maybe you know better, and if you could please provide some examples.
Yeah, so the Salton Lake or Salton Sea, which is more of a desert than a sea, is there's an area out in the California and Nevada area where there's a lot of high geothermal gradient there, and there's been geothermal power plants that's been installed over there, producing some energy from that geothermal heat. And then, it turns out that water also does have, there's a lot of lithium in some of these fluids, these hydrothermal fluids that they're using for a heat source. And so it's kind of makes some sense to, hey, let's take a closer look at that and see if you can pull out some of that lithium. And there's companies that are out there. They are looking into that and trying to build up their lithium processing plant so that they can take some of this groundwater, these hydrothermal fluids, make some geothermal energy out of it, and then take some of the lithium out of it before they pump it back underground.
Perfect. So basically, my next question. So do you think viable to utilize the geothermal resources for heating and power generations whilst also exploiting lithium from brines? I mean, do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I think it just really comes down to just the business side of things. Make sure that it's actually can be profitable and economical to develop these. But I mean, they're producing lithium anyways. They already got the infrastructure in place for processing these fluids. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and add on to it, and that lithium is just going to be wasted. So just go ahead and take that out and put it out there on the market.
Great.
It's going to be it's really a new and exciting developments for this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about your home state, Arkansas. So I understand that there is already a lithium extraction industry in Arkansas, the state in the U.S. where you are from, where you live. So could you provide a brief history of lithium extraction in Arkansas, and how has the focus shifted toward lithium in recent years?
Sure. So, in here in Arkansas, we got there's been folks that have been drilling for oil for 100 years, and especially down in southern Arkansas, there's some oil fields down there where they were been drilling down there, and then they're pumping out some wastewater. Some of these brines are coming out with the oil, and then nobody has any use for this stuff, so they get rid of it. But then it wasn't until about 1950s that they realized, hey, there's actually some bromine in this stuff. And bromine is one of those really underrated elements, on the periodic table that we don't really think about. But we use it all over the place, from plastics to pharmaceuticals. But it turned out there's a market for bromine. It came up in the 50s, and so these oil drillers, they'll pump up this water, and then they'll find a way to extract this bromine, and companies will take that and sell off that bromine. And there was a lot of it in this water. So much so that currently Arkansas is actually the #2 producer of bromine in the world.
Oh, wow.
Second only to Israel.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's sort of one of those things that's like, well, people are already here, looking at that water and taking out some of this bromine out of this water after it's already been pumped out and for the oil, get the oil and gas out of it, get the bromine out of it. But then now we got so much focus on lithium now.
Wait. Is there any association between bromine and lithium? And let's go a little bit sideways. And sorry for my ignorance. What do you use bromine for? And so that's question one. And question two, what is the association? I mean, we were talking about lithium, and then you continued to talk about bromine. So,
yeah.
Could you tell us what is the relationship?
Yeah. So this bromine. So there's a lot of this bromine and lithium are sort of co-produced in some of the similar geologic units, and there's actually a lot of questions about where exactly both of these things come from. That there's a lot of unknowns about this that we haven't fully understood, and so this is an area that we do need a lot more research into to try to really understand the geologic processes that's at play for where this bromine is coming from and how it's getting into this water, where's the lithium coming from, and then how it's accumulating. There's some ideas out there, but we really are kind of not fully clear on what the processes are.
So basically, these brines have high concentrations of both.
Yeah.
Okay. So and they are mixed.
Yeah. They're mixed in, and we've known about a lot of lithium, in the brine for several decades, but there just hasn't been a whole lot of use for it until now. Now, there's people are taking a second look at that lithium and saying, okay, well, can we take some of that out and package it up and put it out on the market? And so we got a few companies that are moved in and are doing just that. We got, it started out, there was a company called Standard Lithium that had moved in, and they would take that leftover wastewater and then try to see if they can pull some of that lithium out of it. And since we already had some infrastructure in place for extracting bromine, it wasn't too much of a stretch to add on a little bit. So it made things a little bit more easier to develop. And so there's been a lot of new engineering development on that front to try to make it more efficient. New techniques, try to make it quicker and easier to process. And it's pretty neat how they can figure out how to get this lithium, because it tends to be bound with chlorides and carbonate ions. And so they can try to pull that out and then bundle it up together as either a carbonate or as a chloride complex or a hydroxide complex molecules, and then they can use that to sell to whichever industries are interested in those particular forms of lithium. And so they're really churning things out right now. They had a pilot plant that had started up, and it seems to be going okay.
So they're extracting the lithium now already?
They are extracting the lithium. It's moving sort of well into the test phase, and they've been developing a second processing plant. And then other companies are taking a close look over here as well, trying to see if they can do the same thing, replicate it.
Okay, now we were talking about the bromine, and in this case, they are combined together in these brines. But is that a unique case, or you typically find both together in brines, in aquifer that have lithium?
As far as I know, I mean, to these concentrations, as far as I know, this is sort of a bit of a unique situation. But I'm sure that there definitely are others where you could probably find some other byproducts such as bromine or something, because you are looking at elements that can complex with chlorides or carbonate ions.
Okay.
And so, lithium does that very well, and bromine can do that as well. So it just depends on the other geologic dynamics at play.
Okay. And again, what is the bromine used for?
So you can use bromine that is used in plastics, and it's used in pharmaceuticals, and it's also used heavily within like ceramic and glass manufacturing.
Oh, okay.
So it's a way to make the process, for manufacturing easier.
And separating these two from the brine, does it make the process much more complex and expensive?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to add cost to it, but for the case here in Arkansas, they've already taken the brines and extracting bromine out of it, and they've been doing that since the 50s. So there's already a lot of development that's already in place, and to get the lithium out of it, it just takes a step further. It's just a bit of a question is how much volumes do you want to process, and if that works for the region, because here I've heard that it does take a lot of volume to get the lithium, even though has high concentrations. You do require a lot of brines.
Oh, okay.
And so, which is a bit of a question is the wellbore large enough to handle those volumes, or when they're pumping the brines to the surface, which that's part of some of the engineering challenges with all of this, and to see if it's really economic to further invest in some of this.
But is it proven to be economic?
So far, it's going, it's chugging along, and there's getting more and more investment into the region.
Awesome.
To do it. So it's looking promising.
Great. Now, in the case of this lithium extraction in Arkansas, what are the key geologic characteristics of the formation that contribute to its potential as a lithium brine producer?
So this is it's all produced within a layer of some Jurassic strata. There's this layer that they call the Smackover Formation, which is it's this predominantly it's a limestone that goes from Texas all the way out to Florida. But then here within the Arkansas area and a little bit into Texas and Louisiana, there is these brines that's got like 450 or 400 parts per million of lithium. Whereas, as a frame of reference here, if you look at some of the continental crust, on average, it's something like 20 parts per million. And then out in seawater, it's less than 1. So, you're looking at, 400 up to 450 parts per million. And so we've got high concentrations here, and this is typically, it's really produced within a layer of this limestone, of the oolitic layer that's got really high porosity. And so you've got like 9, 10, 11, 12%. I think it goes up to about 15% porosity. So it does have a lot of porosity. And it works well as an oil producer. It works well as a brine producer. And it's all within reach of drilling. It's about 6,000 plus feet deep. All of this is really, like I said before, the geologic factors that was at play to concentrate all of this is still a bit foggy and not clear. But a lot of folk kind of thinks that it has something to do with some evaporites and some salt layers that's below it and above it. That some of this had concentrated some of the lithium in whenever these evaporites formed within like a salt flats within a basin. And then all of this had concentrated and then made its way into an aquifer and stayed as the dissolved lithium. There's also some ideas that, there's also some volcanic ash layers within some of this. Maybe that contributed some lithium. It's really a lot more work needs to go into it to really understand what was going on and what all the dynamics. Because on top of it all, you also got hydrology, hydrogeologic processes, the geothermal heat. Do you have any faulting that was going on that's contributing, for migration of fluids, migration of lithium, and to really concentrate it into, this region. Mm-hmm. So it's really, so far from what we understand, it is complicated. There's not a short and simple answer to exactly how this formed, but it does appear that some of these characteristics are like some of the general characteristics of lithium brine concentrations, and that you got some geothermal heat. You do have an ancient enclosed basin. You do have at the time of deposition, it was an arid climate. Mm-hmm. So it sort of checks off a lot of those same boxes of where you can find these lithium brines. Even though that today, the area is much more humid, and it's just totally unlike where it was when it was deposited. Unlike the Salton Sea in western United States or the Atacama Desert today, those areas, it's much more, similar to how this lithium had gotten in place and concentrated. So this one has just got some geologic history that's been added to it,
Hmm.
to kind of make it a little bit of a new area to develop.
Okay, so even though it's, as you mentioned, complex geology, but the check boxes, as you call it, they are specific, and they are not necessarily too peculiar to be in very specific places. It could be in many places around the world, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. And this is going to be really something to keep a close eye on moving into the future to see that there probably are some other areas that have been not developed. It's been underdeveloped and hasn't been really explored for its potential.
Hmm.
Um, and so, it's sort of wait and see what happens
Yeah,
moving forward.
definitely, definitely. It should be considered when looking for geothermal resources. Keep an eye
Hmm.
for lithium,
Keep an eye
and
for it.
even
Absolutely.
in oil and gas drilling and exploration.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, with expected increase in demand for lithium, in your opinion, what is the outlook for lithium extraction from brines at a global scale? And what role do you see these projects playing in the global lithium supply chain? What will be your...
Yes. It's going to be lithium is definitely going to be a big role, big industry, I should say, going into the future because we've got a lot more development, a lot more need for lithium. I've heard that within the next few years, um, that lithium the demand is going to quadruple um, just within the next something like 6 years or so. So it's definitely going to be. Uh, uh, I would say the economics are going to be very favorable to develop a lot of these lithium brines, whether it's through geothermal uh, places that's already got geothermal energy that's already developed, or exploring for new brines elsewhere through co-production with oil and gas or other geothermal plants elsewhere. Um, and so already I think you know we're going to be seeing a lot more development onto this front in the future, and I think that we're going to see a lot more engineering development that's going to tackle a lot of the challenges that's necessary to overcome a lot of the development and processing that we need, and really because there's different ways to extract lithium, whether through evaporation or through new processing plants, that there's going to be some flexibility, I think, moving forward in terms of ways to process lithium and allowing for new developments of lithium around the world. I really wouldn't be surprised of more flexibility on that. And even for Arkansas itself, I think Arkansas has got a lot of potential here, and I think they're going to be really chugging away at that.
Excellent.
And it'll be really neat to see what happens.
Hmm. So, for extracting this lithium from these geothermal brines in Arkansas, how deep are these wells? I think you mentioned like 6,000 feet.
Yeah, so they're 6,000 feet, and they go deeper than that to something like 12 to 15
Mm.
in some places, which here they've already been drilling for oil and gas, already at those depths in the central part of the United States. So we've already got drilling rigs and a lot of those engineering abilities that's already in
Yeah.
place to drill for these. And And so we'll be keeping a close eye on that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it sounds very promising. So, yeah, I think we are reaching the final part of the interview. And yeah, I invite you to say some final words, Noah.
Yeah, the lithium, these geothermal brines and lithium brines are going to be, I think, a really game changer for the lithium industry. They are really quickly becoming a major source of lithium that we are using, and I think that's only just going to increase very, very, very quickly. And it's all a whole new industry, and there's a lot of really really good discussions on lithium that's been taking place, and be able to use these lithium brines for geothermal and for as a lithium energy source for batteries and for electric cars and things like that. So that co-production between the two, you know, get some sort of really renewable energy supply just from some really salt water.
Excellent. Yeah, there is a promising future for sure for this co-production of geothermal and
Yeah,
lithium.
yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Noah. It's been great having this conversation. And to the audience, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.